Hey, Coach, so glad you found us on YouTube. Couple things. First of all, make sure you go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. Let me help you put banners and all those things in the gym. It's a great community. We do one-on-one calls, office hours. There's nothing like it. And you get my personal email address. There's a roadmap in there to help you become a better basketball coach. Also, go over and subscribe and like. Have a great day.
All right, welcome to Coach Unplugged episode. Wow, I don't even. I'm gonna look here as I'm pulling this up, Coach. I think High School Hoops, when we're doing this, is at 2066 episodes, and I'm still happily married. That is unbelievable, in my opinion. I know.
Hey, I'm a recently married guy, so
Oh yeah. That did she ever know you as not a head coach?
she did. So we're actually high school sweethearts.
Oh,
So she knew me as a high schooler. Uh,
yeah.
she's starting to come around as the head coach. She's doing
Okay.
some coaching herself. She was a
Okay.
college athlete, and so she's starting to do some coaching herself.
That helps.
And
That helps.
so she's starting to figure it out, I think, a little
Yeah,
bit.
I got married the summer before I got my head job, so my wife's only known me. We've only lived together as me being a head coach.
Yep,
So that's
same
perfect.
here. Yeah, that's nice.
So that's nice. Like me not being around is just kind of the norm, I guess. All right. So I'm gonna coach, I'm gonna get your name right. It's Vanden Pfeiffer. Is that right?
Very close.
Right,
Van Pfeiffer.
Van Duff Pfeiffer. It
Yep.
was close. Hey, I
Very
did
close.
practice it. It was pretty close.
You
I
did.
practiced
People have been saying it wrong my whole life, so it's fine.
Anyway, I'm going to have you kind of introduce yourself and then tell the listeners a little bit about your basketball journey, and then we'll just jump in and start talking. I was close.
Sounds
I'd
good.
give myself a B- on that. All right.
Oh, for sure. So my name's Eric Vandepfeiffer. I'm the head boys varsity basketball coach at Merrill High School in Midland. It's like Saginaw adjacent, if anybody knows where Saginaw is.
Okay, so I know where Kalamazoo is.
Okay, so it's probably still 2.5 hours northeast of Kalamazoo.
Northeast of Kalamazoo.
East towards the thumb.
Oh.
So we're like right in the middle of the mitten.
Okay. All right. I got a
Super
better
small
idea.
school. Yeah, give you a better idea. So I actually grew up here in Michigan in a really small town right in between Saginaw and Flint.
Okay.
And so
I've been in the UP more probably than my wife's aunt just passed away, and so we're going to be going there in a couple weeks to Kalamazoo. I've been to Kalamazoo a bunch of times, and then I've been up to the Sioux, because my wife's cousin lives in Pickford, which is by the Sioux.
Yep.
So I've been up there. That is God's country up there. Let me tell you, man.
Yes, it is. I've gone.
They probably still have snow in June, I'm telling you.
Probably. Story for another episode, but quick. I went on a camping trip with my father-in-law and brother-in-laws a couple years ago up in the UP. Went to Porcupine Mountains, got lost on the shores of Lake Superior for like 2.5 hours.
Oh, porcupines are gorgeous.
Oh, they are.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, we went on a hiking trip and kind of got off the beaten path, and we were on the shores of Lake Superior for like 2.5 hours before we found our way back. So do not recommend not going on the trails that are prepared for you.
You know, I tell people that are listening, because people listen all over the country and all over the world, the sand dunes in Michigan are crazy.
Yeah.
Like people, nice. You would not, like, first of all, there are some TikToks about them right now. There's some steep ones, whatever. But you would not think there are sand dunes like there are sand dunes in Michigan. I'm just telling you. It's like, until I saw them, it's like, what? Like, you just don't think of that.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, they are pretty cool. All right, so go ahead. Tell your basketball journey a little bit.
So obviously played basketball all through high school, went on to go to college at Central Michigan University. And so from there kind of started just volunteering. I had a friend, my friend's wife was a teacher at a local school up in Mount Pleasant area. And so she was coaching basketball and asked if I wanted to help volunteer and just kind of help her out with that. And so I volunteered and helped her assist a girls team at that time, 10 minutes down the road from college. So started coaching there and really kind of like fell in love with coaching. All the while going to Central Michigan, I wanted to be a broadcaster. wanted to be on the radio, wanted to work for ESPN, wanted to work for Fox Sports, calling football, basketball, you name it.
Yep.
And so I actually became, one of the voices of the Central Michigan women's basketball team the year that they made a run to the Sweet 16. And so that was
That had to be
super
fun.
fun.
You have a really deep voice like I do. You have a very yes.
So that was super fun, going on a nice trip, through the Sweet 16 with them, and then being around the program from there. All the while still volunteer coaching. COVID hit, so I moved back home and started volunteer coaching with my local high school girls and boys basketball programs both. A really good friend of mine from high school was the girls coach. And then I had played boys basketball. So I started volunteering with both of them. And then I actually started calling games for men's and women's basketball at Saginaw Valley State University, a Division II program in the GLIAC. Okay. So about 30 minutes from where I grew up.
Are there a lot of Division IIs in Michigan?
There's a ton. So I don't know how familiar you are with the GLIAC at all in Division II. So, there's probably that conference is made up of 10 Division II programs, and 8 of them are in the state of Michigan.
Okay.
And so they're one of the top, upper echelon of the conference. And so
it's like Minnesota has a bunch too up in.
Yeah.
Minnesota has like 4 or 5 up there.
Yeah. We've got like 8 of them. We've got 3 of them in the UP, another 5 of them in the lower peninsula.
Okay.
So kind of all spread out, but started calling games, all the road and away, home and away games from them. It was, for me, I think that was kind of where I learned a lot more about basketball, traveling with college basketball teams. It was actually super, every coach from Central Michigan and at SVSU, they were super, I went to every shoot around. I got to sit in every film session on the road. Got to sit in every scout that they got to do when we were on the road. And so that's where I was just a sponge of trying to absorb everything I possibly could.
Because that's a whole different world. Yes.
Oh, it's nuts. That type of stuff that they're doing, even at the Division II level, it's crazy. And so, calling games there, and then decided that I wanted to take my first head coaching job. So I actually coached JV girls to get things going.
I tell people, here's what I tell people about getting your first job. You got to get your first job. Yes. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
8th grade, it doesn't matter. Take a job.
Yeah.
You want to learn how to coach.
Yeah. So I started
coaching. Figure out where you want to go after that. I know.
Exactly. So I started coaching JV girls actually at my alma mater when I went to high school at. Girls program was kind of in shambles, but like I said, my friend was coaching, and I could see he was heading in the right direction. And so being able to kind of help him, mentor and develop some players that were eventually going to be, varsity players for him was really fun. And so I coached there for a couple of years. And actually that first group of freshmen that I had on JV, who are juniors now, actually just made it to the regional final game for the first time in 40 years in our school's history.
That's awesome.
So that was super awesome to be able to coach that group of girls and mentor them up. And then, and then finally landed my first varsity head coaching gig just recently. Finished my first year, going into my second year now. And man, I had a blast.
And so that I want to dive into that because I wrote some notes about this. Let me grab my notes. So tell me what the biggest pivot for you was from not being a head coach to being a head coach. What were the biggest things that you noticed?
Practice planning. Being an assistant coach, for the most part, you don't have to do a whole lot of practice planning. It's kind of like a show up and, okay, this is what we're doing. Head coaches usually try to ask your assistants, hey, what do you think we should work on today? What type of drill should we do? But you're not the one putting, the whole practice plan together. And so making sure you've got a good plan. But I think that the biggest thing is just the administrative work is so people don't understand how much administrative work actually goes into being a head coach.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I'm at a big school, so I've got 1 paid assistant, 2 volunteer assistants, and one of my assistants literally does all that stuff.
Yeah.
Does buses, does, all that stuff. There is so much of that. It's crazy.
Yeah. So the amount of administrative work you've got to do, I think, is kind of the biggest pivot that like you don't understand. I guess you don't think about when you're getting your first head coaching job is like, oh, okay, now I've got to be in charge of uniforms and distribution and pickup. I've got to be in charge of all equipment. I've got to be in charge of, making sure the book is filled out correctly. Because like you said, you're at a big school. I'm not so much. I've got one volunteer assistant, and then my JV coach is also, helps out with our varsity program as well. And so, yeah, so a lot of it falls on my shoulders. And so I think that's one of the things, like the biggest thing that people don't realize, or that I didn't even think about when I got my first head coaching job, is how much non-basketball work goes into being a head coach.
I know. And that's what, like how much non-coaching. Yes.
Yeah.
So what about, tell me about the practice planning. Let's dive into that a little bit. What did you see or feel about that?
So the biggest thing for me, coaching and playing basketball, you got a bunch of drills, but it was always, how can I make these drills better or figure things out? And so I think for me, it was, I didn't almost realize how much goes into making a single practice plan. And so I actually created a template in Google Sheets so that I don't have to start from like absolute zero every day.
Right.
So I made a template in Google Sheets. I use that, save them all every day too. So, I'm able to pull things from previous practices.
When do you do your practice planning? Like
generally
when do you sit and do it? Because I've changed
generally
over
the
time.
morning of.
Yeah.
Generally the morning of is how I try to do it. I've tried to do it like 30 minutes before. When I was first starting with as a JV coach, I tried doing it like 30 minutes before, and it just was a disaster. And so I try to do it the morning of.
Yeah, what I tell coaches is a couple things. First of all, I used to do it the night before, and the problem is, then I would sleep on it, and then I would end up pivoting and changing half of it the next morning because I know I was thinking about it when I was sleeping. Like, oh, yeah, we didn't do this very well. So, I'm going to sound old when I do this, but I still do it with paper and pencil. And the reason is, I was talking to a coach the other day about this. I have templates. I use Practice Planner Live. There's other things I use to kind of use a template. But the problem is, it's a living document for me. Like, I am writing notes on it during practice. I am jotting things down. I am going, oh God, Johnny isn't pivoting. We got to work on his, tomorrow we got to work on pre-practice. Oh crud, we didn't get to this. We got to do it tomorrow. So very much for me, it's a living document. So that's why, and then I'll just throw it in my binder and I'll go the next day and I'll look back sometimes. But that's the biggest issue for me is it's like, I set up these times, I set up what we need to get ready for this opponent. But you're right. I tend to do it in the morning. Hopefully my principal, I don't care if my principal's listening because I'll retire. I don't care. Anyway, during my prep period or something, I'll sit and do it, or lunch. But I just have not found, and I'm just too jacked and too pissed off or too happy or whatever. I think it's better when you have a chance to contemplate a little bit.
I put a section on my practice plans because I'm kind of like you. I'm jotting down notes the whole time. So I actually have, I'm jotting notes down, but then at the side of my practice plan, I put a couple of boxes, one for post-practice positives and one for post-practice negatives. And so that for me, like, I'm kind of like you, I put it in the binder, and then the next day I use my positives and negatives from the practice the day before to kind of help mold what I'm going to do for practice. And I do the same thing for games. So I have a game sheet that I carry around in my pocket or have in my hand throughout the game that kind of just has like a play sheet, a sub sheet, kind of like rotation sheet, but then I have a positives and negatives takeaway so that I can have that. I jot it down after a game so that I have it for the next day to kind of help remind me of what,
Okay, I want you to stay married, but do you watch practice?
I do a little bit, probably not nearly as much as I should.
I do. I do. I really do. And our machine hasn't been working. It's this year. Yeah. I'll be doing something else. Like if you could see my setup right now, I've got, 3 monitor. I've got my setup here, and then I've got a monitor to the left, a monitor in the middle, a monitor on the right. So it looks like NORAD in here. But usually on one of the monitors, I'll have practice going, and maybe I'll be doing my grading, or I'll be figuring out what I'm doing for class tomorrow, or I'll be doing something else, editing a podcast maybe or something. But I've always got it there, so it's like, ooh, I remember that. I gotta watch that or something.
Yeah.
Because I tape them. I think it's important. Kids will do funny stuff, and then I'll do this to the camera, so when I'm rewatching it, I can find it. Yeah, I can find it. It's fun to show some of those clips sometimes, but yeah, you need more hours in a day. That's part of the problem.
That's the problem. Oof. Oh my word, that's the problem. Yeah.
Have you
ever had somebody outside your program come in and do like a practice audit?
All the time.
Yeah.
And one of them's on my staff now, actually.
Oh, nice.
I haven't had, again, I'm near the end. I probably got a couple years left. So I haven't recently had someone do that. Post-COVID, I haven't, for sure. Pre-COVID, I did all the time. Yeah. I think that's a really good idea. Like that's a great question. If I came to your practice, what would I see? What would I see? What would I come home if I was driving to Kalamazoo, maybe a couple hours away?
Coming after. What would I be seeing? What would I think? What would I hopefully if everything's going well, you see pretty high intensity kids working hard. We're gonna have some fun, right? Especially in today's like post-COVID world. The one thing that I've seen is like having you've got to make it fun for kids, or it's so easy for them just to go home and play video games.
Right.
And so, I tell guys all the time, I'm still a young enough guy too. So like I will run sprints with the team.
You've got a lot more street cred. Yeah. The only way I get any street cred is I have food in my room at all times. So they come in and see me to get fed. But otherwise it's like I'm the old fart. Yeah, you still are young enough. You're right.
I'm young enough. I still relate with them, a decent amount, but then I also I'll run sprints sometimes. Like if we're doing some sprints, I'll run, and it's I do like if I beat anybody, it doesn't count. Because I'm far enough removed from high school that I'm out of shape.
But
I'm still young enough that I can still beat some of these kids. So if I join a sprint, granted it's an hour and a half into practice, and if they've been working hard, they should be pretty tired. But if I just join into a sprint and I beat somebody, it doesn't count. We got to do it again.
Okay, I got to get in shape well enough for next year. That's a great thing. Like if the 57-year-old can beat one of you, there's a problem.
Yeah. See, for me, I'm only 25. So like if a 25-year-old can beat the 18-year-old, okay, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. But if I beat you, there's a major problem going on. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do that every once in a while, like kind of, just makes it fun for the kids. And then every once in a while, if I can tell things are getting a little lull in practice, I'll end practice with, we have to make a half court shot before we go home. I like that one for a couple of reasons. A, it's just fun. Like you just see a bunch of kids chucking up half court shots.
Right.
But then I'm paying attention to, okay, if I get in a late game situation and I need a half court shot with 3 seconds left, who am I going to?
Strong enough. I know.
Who am I going to? So, for the most part, hopefully if you're driving home, you come to practice, you see kids working hard, a lot of intensity, energy. I try to feed a lot of energy. I'm a super positive guy and high energy. So hopefully
that's
you take that away.
That will be harder. That will be harder 30 years from now. You're still coaching. It's just harder. It's just, I just don't have as much energy. It's just like, oh my gosh. But again, I forced myself to kind of get into that. If you could only do 3 things at practice, what would be the 3 things? You only do 3
drills
things.
Or three
things.
Drills you're saying?
Yeah, okay. You could only coach 3 things. You could only discuss and coach 3 things at practice. What would you discuss and why? And what would you do and why? So I'm gonna give you a shorter practice. It's February and you got an hour and a half. So you can only do 3 things.
So number one, if it's February, it's probably game prep So we're going to watch film and go over our scouting report that has been put together for game either tomorrow or the day after.
Yep. Okay.
So it's film and scouting report for our next upcoming opponent. And then
how long do you normally do film sessions for?
20 to 30 usually.
That's that. And I've told coaches that recently too. That's gotten lower. I think hopefully maybe they're coming out of COVID. Yeah. You're going to lose them after 30.
Yeah. So it's usually like 20 to 30.
I'll do 15 to 20 on film, and then I'll do 10 to 15 on something else about like, okay, well, you know, how's the locker room? How's the bench handled? Some non-basketball related thing, they'll refocus. If it's just film, it's like, ooh, it's brutal. It's brutal.
I utilize Huddle a lot too. You know, you can create playlists in Huddle, and so instead of just, hey, we're just going to watch 20 minutes of film and I'm just going to point things out as they come, I break it down into playlists.
Yeah, I never do that. I only do that. Clips. I've done that a handful of times in my career, and that is when someone beat us that should not have beaten us. I will make them sit there for the quote from me is, you made me sit through this for an hour and 20 minutes. I'm going to make you sit through this for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah. So I think that helps putting together some clips because it breaks it up. It's not watching, 4 or 5.
Right. They're just watching themselves, to be honest with you. That's what they're doing. Okay.
So
film is one.
So film is one. Film and scouting report. And then I usually, with film, I'll show things, draw it up on the whiteboard. But then the number one thing I like to do when we get into the gym afterwards, we do our warm up. But then I like to walk through all of those actions we just watched the opponent do on film. And so, for me, I think of like everybody learns differently, right? You can watch it, you can see it or hear it, and you can do it. And so for my thought process is, if I can do all 3 of those things, talk them through it, draw them through it, walk them through it. If I can do all 3, everybody should have a general idea of what our scouting report and what we can expect from our opponents. So if it's a scout day or like game plan day, it's film and then immediately walking through everything we just talked and watched, is usually how I like to put it together. And then I would be either some type of shooting or rebounding or kind of working on if we're going to do something new or different for this opponent. If we're going to change something and maybe, the opponent's got a really good player and we're going to run a box and 1. But we haven't run a box and 1 in maybe 3 weeks. And so we're going to touch on that again. And so it's really just like a refresh at that point.
Okay. And is there anything else?
Not usually. Maybe end with some running. I am one who thinks that we don't need to run we don't need to stop practice to do down and backs.
Okay.
Like if we're working hard enough if we're doing our job and working hard enough in practice, that's our conditioning. Is we're jogging or at least sprinting in between drills and we're running everything game speed, that's our conditioning. And so I always save like 5 to 10 minutes at the end of practice in my plan as if we didn't practice hard enough, we're going to do down and backs. If we did, great, we get out 10 minutes early.
Okay. Tell me about your coaching philosophy.
Yeah.
Like
so
general, or it doesn't matter. I mean,
so for me, I think for me, it's a lot of like positive, especially post COVID. Like it's not, you've been coaching for a long time. So you might, you probably understand a little more of like old school coaching where it's just, hey, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to scream in your face and you're just going to listen and do what I have to tell you to do, from the 80s, 90s, whatever.
Yeah, 80s and 90s. That didn't work. Late 2000 doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that doesn't work anymore. And so I'm like super positive. And so generally I try to put together like a sandwich method. I don't know if you've heard of that. So it's like positive, negative, positive. When I try to do my coaching. So it's, hey, Steve, you did that. Coach, you did this thing really, really well. Here's something you can work on. Here's something else you did really, really well during this drill. And so it kind of like sandwiches the negative. So they still get the coaching and the feedback, but they understand like you're trying to keep it positive and upbeat. And so like, that's even one of those things that when I'm hiring assistants and stuff or looking for assistants, like that was the number one thing that I told them before season started. We had a coaches meeting and it was, hey, we're never going to talk down to a kid.
Never lie to them because you're
never going to lie and you're never going to talk down. Like you're never going to tell a kid that he's he did this thing terribly, or that he sucks at this. Like that's just not language that we use in my program. And so it's just try to keep it as positive as we possibly can, and give some constructive feedback and criticism where needed.
Okay. What do you think is the hardest thing to coach or teach?
Late game situations.
Really?
I don't know if it's the hardest, but I think it's the most undertaught. You know what I mean? Like, I feel
No,
like
I just did a course on it. I swear to God, I got it down to, so you know how football coaches have that sheet to tell them what to do, and I made one of those for basketball.
Yeah, so did I. For that exact reason, because
it's color coded and everything, and it's green 100%. And it's like and I even shrunk it to a 3x5. So I got it to a piece of paper, and then I got it to a 3x5. But I also think those are the key to that is reps.
Yes, I agree. But I think, almost like part of it is every situation is different. And so, if you're in a dogfight and you use a lot of timeouts early and you maybe only have one timeout with 45 seconds left and it's a 2-point game, like it is, for yourself, do you call timeout then? Do you wait? But then trusting, like teaching your players, okay, if we're in this specific situation, here's what we're doing. And so I think that's the hardest thing to coach is getting players to understand situational basketball.
It is. It's honestly crazy. And the thing is, part of it is too, like early in the season, we had a game in December and I didn't take a timeout. Normally I'll take a timeout and we'll diagram something up. But I didn't take one because I didn't trust that they were going to run what I was going to diagram up. And we hadn't practiced it because it was December. But by February, we had practiced it. We knew it. We had something. We were ready and didn't make it, but it was a good shot.
Isn't that the most frustrating thing when you draw something up in a timeout and then it doesn't get run correctly?
Yeah. So, but if you haven't practiced it, you can't expect them to do it.
Yeah.
So, exactly. They won't. I'm just being real. I've done this long enough. If you have not done it, 1 out of 10, it's gonna work. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 out of 10. It would really depend. Do you have a coaching failure that you like to share that coaches could learn from? I got lots of them.
I would say, where do we start, right? So this is kind of a coaching failure, but this is also just like a funny story. So second summer workout that I was doing this last summer, we're using the shooting machine and I'm shagging loose balls and I put my whistle between my lips and walk in front of the shooting machine, get hit with the basketball right in the whistle, broke both of my front teeth. So my left front tooth is a fake because I took a whistle to the teeth and broke it in half.
This one, both my front teeth are fake too. One's a wall and one is shoulder in college. I dug it out of the guy's shoulder.
Oh,
yeah.
So that's my for right now, my claim to fame coaching failure. Hopefully it doesn't get any worse than that. I'm sure I'm going to have some. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, right? Coaching, you look back and you think, man, if I'd have just done this differently in this game, we probably would have had a better chance to win. But that's my one claim to fame right now. Hopefully it doesn't get any worse.
That's not a bad one. If you could talk to one coach for an hour, who would you talk to?
So, I mean, there's a ton of them. Like the easy answer is Dan Hurley, right?
Right.
With Connecticut right now, like that, whatever that dude's doing, like
I'd get Jay Wright because I think I'd get more of his attention, to be honest with you.
Yeah, probably. So the real answer right now is probably, I mean, I would love to be able to like sit down with Bob Knight just to kind of like pick his brain. Now that dude, like,
that would be hard to do. That would be hard to do. That would be hard to do now, but yes.
Yeah. But if I could,
anybody living or dead, yes.
Yeah, living or dead. If it was anybody, it would be him. Living right now, it would probably be Shaka Smart.
Really?
That he's had success everywhere. Or Scott Drew. Scott Drew runs I like running a 1-3-1 zone here and there just because I think it's a different thing that a lot of teams don't see. And Scott Drew runs a very, very interesting 1-3-1 defense at Baylor. And I'd love to just be able to pick his brain about that for an hour.
And he pivots. It's interesting how yes, I would agree. It's interesting his
just the rotations within it is
and,
so interesting, and I would just love to be able to pick his brain about that. But I think
you got to be long.
We've
run a lot of 1-3-1. You got to be long to run it.
Yes,
you can't have a bunch of little guards and run it. You just can't.
Yeah.
You can get away without a big.
Yep.
You can get away with maybe one athlete that's not long, but you need size. You need, because there's a lot of angles that you got to take away.
Yeah.
And the length just helps you so much with that. But yeah, I agree.
Shaka Smart has just he's been successful everywhere, and he runs a lot of interesting actions. I think
he gets his guys to play really hard.
He does gets his guys to play really hard, and so just trying to figure out how he gets as good a buy-in as he does would be amazing.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, so I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
All right,
just generic questions that I normally ask. What's your favorite brand or type of basketball that you play with?
So we've got all Rawlings basketballs. They're like the official basketball of our state association, and so it's what we use all day in practice. It's just what we go with.
Yep, that's what I tell coaches. We use Spalding TF1000. That's because that's what the most. I tell the kids the most important game of the year will be played with that ball. So
yeah,
might as well use it. One word to describe your ideal player.
Gritty. I would say just a kid who's works hard and is willing to do some dirty work when we need him to.
Okay. Well, if you go to one sporting event in the world, what would you go to and why?
The Masters. I'm a huge golf guy. Love golf. So if I could go to the Masters, that would be like Sunday Masters.
You can just get in the lottery, and you got.
Well, I've tried. I've been trying for 7 years.
You have?
Well, yeah, but I haven't won yet. So, but if I could, if I knew I was going, it's the Masters, 100%.
Okay. Favorite pregame or postgame meal?
Postgame meal. I usually don't eat after games. I can't. I don't know why.
I'm so hungry. I can't eat before games. I can eat after games.
So I usually don't eat before games either. I eat like 5 hours before a game, and then I just don't eat again until the next day, usually. And it's usually Subway. I think it's
that will change. I'm so hungry after a
game. I think that's my superstition is I've been eating Subway before basketball games since I played in high school. And so I think that's just like my thing. It's just every game day I'm eating a sub from Subway.
Okay. One thing you do to relax?
Listen to music, sit in my coach's office by myself, and I put headphones in, sit in the coach's office by myself, and look over what my game sheet has for the day to make sure I have everything I need.
That's a good idea. Do you have any superstitions?
I think Subway is probably it.
Subway. Okay.
Yeah.
Describe your perfect player in 5 words or less.
Perfect player in 5 words or less.
Yep.
Let's see. Quick, long. We'll go back to gritty. Confident. And let's go with smart.
Okay. Best basketball player you have seen in person?
Monte Morris.
Okay. Best basketball player of all time?
Ooh, this is a tough debate, like LeBron or Jordan. I'm a young guy, so I'm gonna say LeBron.
Wrong.
But I know I will get a lot of heat from that.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Michael never lost when he made it to the championship.
That's true. You're right. Yeah. I
mean, if we're gonna go sheer championships, you go Russell. But
it's also true.
I also think, you can go back and say Magic and Larry changed the game more than anybody. But if you're talking about winning in modern day, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's good.
It's very
LeBron's good. He's good. And his longevity is what's helping him too.
I think that's his biggest thing is being able to play 21 years and still be a top 10 player in the league. Like,
yeah, that's the key. I think that's why he might end up being in that discussion. If you only teach one skill at practice, one basketball skill, what would it be?
one basketball skill at practice, probably defensive positioning.
Okay. Shot clock, yes or no?
Yes and no. Well, yes, I think we should have it. I don't think it'll ever happen personally.
You don't.
I just don't think so. I think you and I as coaches want it. I don't think athletic directors do. And I think there's a huge divide between 80% of coaches want it, but 80% of athletic
I
directors
really don't care. I just think it's stupid. I don't think it's going to do anything in the game, and I think it's going to make every game vanilla. That's why I don't want it.
Yeah,
I don't really
so
if you're playing me and you pull the ball out, I'm coming at you. You're not pulling the ball out on me.
That's part of it.
So it's like, so when you see that one TikTok of the team standing up, that's the defensive problem. It's not the offensive problems.
Yeah. My big thing too is like, I mean, I've played a lot and I've seen a lot of bad teams play basketball. And so like, I think the biggest question is, what do you make the shot clock? Like, is it 40? Is it 30?
It's got to be 35 or 40 at the high school level. It's got
because otherwise, like, teams aren't going to get a shot off.
No,
like,
the bad teams. Like we would have zero shot. We would have
off.
zero shot clock violation. Zero.
Yeah.
In our league, we'd have zero. It wouldn't even be a problem. But
in my league, we'd have a ton.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we've got a team in our league that didn't win a game last year.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't get a shot off in a shot clock.
Right. I just think it would be bad at the lower level. Yeah. I don't know. If you could change one thing about the game, what would you change?
I would put a restricted arc in high school too.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you listen to the podcast, you know that I would get rid of the jump ball.
I agree with that.
No reason.
Get rid of the jump.
Ball.
Yeah. Yep. Just let them play.
Yep. The visiting team starts with the ball, and then it's alternating possession. It's stupid. And my biggest issue is the officials are horrible at throwing the ball.
So did they do that in over there?
They did it during COVID.
They did it. Yeah. So same here, and it worked great. Like just visiting team gets the ball.
Why? I know. I'm gonna start a campaign. Why do we have jump balls?
I'll sign your petition.
I mean, I'm gonna start a petition. It's like, why do we have a jump ball? We don't need jump balls.
I agree.
Then I mean, that'd be my gift to this game of basketball. Let's get rid of the stupid jump ball, or do jump balls.
Yeah, every time instead of alternating possession. Yeah,
right. And do it. But why do we do it once and then we played in a triple overtime this year? It's like, you just you can't do that.
I'm with you.
You did the chart. So best game you've seen in person.
Best game I have seen in person is probably one of the Division I championship games. So I'm fortunate enough. I actually work for the state association every championship season. I broadcast.
Where is the state championship?
They play them at Michigan State
at
the Breslin Center at Michigan State.
Okay.
And so I actually get to call every Division I and Division III championship game every year.
You do the play-by-play?
I do the play-by-play. Yep.
That's tough, man. I've done color. Yeah. Color's easy.
Piece of cake. I've done them both. I do play-by-play because again, it's what I wanted. Like when I went to college, it's what I wanted to do.
Right. And colors. So I've done it and color's easy. I'm just throwing in shit. But when you're doing play-by-play, and I'm driving down the highway, I got to know what's going on. Like you got to tell me what's happening. Where's the ball? Who's got it? Who shot? Blah blah. Yeah. It's so much harder.
It's difficult. It's difficult because we do every semifinal. So they host the semifinals at the Breslin Center too. So they do, I'll do 2 semifinal games on Thursday, 2 semifinal games on Friday, and then 2 championship games on Saturday is how they run the end of our state tournament.
Wow.
And so 6 games in 3 days with, 60 different kids' names and 6 different teams, it's crazy. So it's definitely hard, but yeah, I mean, probably one of the best games I've seen in person actually was probably this last year. One of the Division III semifinal games, both of them in the boys' side ended on buzzer beaters. The semifinals ended on buzzer beater, like fadeaway buzzer beaters. Yeah.
Yes. It's hard. And it's hard. The color guy can't step on the play-by-play guy on TV, on radio.
especially
TV,
on radio.
Especially on radio. On TV, it doesn't matter if you
No.
step on them a little bit because the people can see what's going on. But it's like you cannot step on them at all because they got to be able to get that stuff out so people know what's going on. Quarters or halves?
I think halves. We play quarters in Michigan. So I think we either do halves or college basketball goes to quarters.
Yeah, we play, and women do. We play 18-minute halves.
Yeah.
The flow of the game is crazy. It's so much better.
Yeah. So I think either high school goes to halves or the college game should why do men's college are the only basketball that doesn't play quarters? Makes no sense to me.
I know.
Like,
unless it's commercials, that's the only thing I think is money. But
I mean, they figured it out in the women's game. They play quarters, and you figured out the commercials. Like,
I know.
So I think either you go to all high schools are halves, or all college is quarters.
I know. One word to describe your coaching style.
Energetic.
Okay.
I'm out there.
One book you'd recommend.
One book I'd recommend. I've got it right here, I think. No, I don't. Dang it. It's by John Wooden.
Okay.
And it's like Wooden's Secrets to Success, and it's like not even like basketball related.
Okay.
But it's just like his secrets to like being a successful coach in general and just like a successful life.
Okay. One thing you tell your younger self.
Slow down. Don't get too excited to jump into it. Don't be too ready to grow up.
Right. Yeah. It goes fast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Any advice for coaches that are listening? That's always my last question on these interviews.
Yeah. Biggest tip of advice, I would say, is probably, make sure you get prepared. No matter where you're at, preparing for interviews, preparing for games, preparing for whatever it is, over prepared. Like it's one of the things I even took for myself in broadcasting. Like, we've talked about that a little bit. The amount of, you've done some broadcasting with, I'm assuming, some pretty good play-by-play guys, and you see the sheets that they put together.
Oh, it's crazy.
I mean,
and I can, and I'm blind, and as I've gotten older, it's harder to see the little print, but I don't need to. I can just look over. It's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
They got color coded and numbers, and they're holding stuff. It's
I don't think I have one right here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I put, I'll spend 6 hours into one, putting a sheet together for one possible basketball game, and I'll maybe use like 8% of what's on the sheet.
Right.
But in the off chance I need it, I've got it. And so being over prepared, especially in coaching, like, you and I had talked about putting together that little sheet for late game situations. You're going to run into a late game situation. So why not prepare for it before you get there?
Yes. And I think that's a great thing in your coaching. It's like early in my coaching career, and this was pre-huddle, this was pre-crossover, this was pre all this stuff. I could only do so much, but I knew I could out scout and out prepare for the opponent. I knew I could do that. I knew I could spend more time than anybody that we were going to play on watching film, on getting ready. I didn't have the players to necessarily beat them, but I knew I could. There's where I could make a little up. Like I could know what they were going to do, and again, I think in parts we've gotten a little lazy because it's gotten so much easier. I mean, it's crazy. I used to, like, in our apartment, I used to have like 4 VCRs, and I'd tape VCR tapes, and I'd break film down, and it was like, I mean, I've watched more film than any human being should do, but that's the only way I could do it. And, and now it's like, poof, poof, here's your stats, here's your breakdowns. It's like, and it's great for my marriage, but I filled it with something else, but holy crap. So I think that's what I think that's a great bit of advice, is over prepare.
Yeah. You can never be too prepared for anything. I mean, especially in coaching.
And I tell my guys, I said, nothing will happen. I've said I've coached for 35 years. I've been a head coach for 26 years. I said nothing is going to happen that I haven't thought about and we're not ready for. I'm telling you.
At least I'm not ready for. Yeah.
I will be ready. You might not be, but I will have been ready for this.
Yeah.
We will be.
100%.
I will. There's a reason I'm the last one to get on the bus. There's a reason that you eat this after a game and we play the next. Everything has been thought about. Like, don't worry about it. You play.
Yep.
You listen to me and you play.
Yeah. Just go play and I'll know what to do.
And your jersey will be in your locker, ready to go for tip off. And all you have to do is get ready and be ready to play. And everything else will be good. All right. Well, this was great, Coach. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, Coach. So glad you enjoyed the video. Subscribe and like before you leave. And also go over and check out Teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. It's got everything and a roadmap for you to become a better basketball coach. So go over and check it out. And let's head back to the next video, wherever that would be.